Go ahead, Joe.
So I'd like to call to order the special meeting of Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust for Thursday, November 12th, 2020. And first item of the on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the September 10th, 2020 annual meeting of TMAT. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Let me roll. Let me call the roll.
Oh, you got to do that. Never mind.
Let me call the roll.
Jumping ahead. I
Sorry,
got too many different meetings that
I know. Let me. Joe Robson,
yes.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Yes.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff,
Go ahead.
I think Cheyenne's on the phone. I don't know if she's on for the mayor or not.
Diane.
Yes, since the mayor's not on yet, I would be happy to
Okay.
be him for now.
Would you like to lodge a vote for the minutes?
I'll vote aye.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Stav is on the phone as well.
Jeff Stava, are you on?
Yes.
Would you like to lodge a vote for the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got. All right, thank you.
Okay. So before we present the agenda item number 3 and 4, I just wanted to provide an update to the trustees regarding the lease negotiations with American. As you all know, American announced they're making a significant investment in the Tulsa maintenance base back in February. And as part of that process, we were looking at the lease and instead of doing a 19th amendment to a 1958 lease, we decided we wanted to amend and restate the entire lease. And that's what we've been working on really since American notified us that they were wanting to proceed with the project. And so our team has been working very closely with American's team, both locally here in Tulsa and in Dallas, to work through different components of the lease. There were several provisions of the lease that really needed to be updated. And so we're continuing through that process. We are having bi-weekly meetings at this point, sometimes daily calls, but we're getting to the point where we're going to have an amended and restated lease that I feel accurately reflects the base premises and the relationship between TMAT and American. And so we don't have that on this agenda for you to consider today. The bond issuance is still full steam ahead, and I would anticipate in the coming weeks. In fact, we're looking at December 2nd as the date to have a meeting with you all to approve the entire bond resolution package, which would include the amended and restated lease. And so just wanted to provide you that update. Once we get confirmation that we have a lease that American and TMAT both agree to the terms on, then we will move forward with scheduling that next meeting. But there are these additional items that are somewhat connected to that, and Jeff is going to present those today for your consideration.
All right. So the first one, number 3, is approve the amended and restated sublease between the City of Tulsa and the Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust. That was part of your materials. That draft lease was part of your materials that I sent a couple of days ago. We're still in attorney review mode, but we anticipate wrapping all that up pretty quickly. So this lease combines 3 other leases that were done over the years, over the decades, and it's just kind of cleaning up the whole lease issue between TAIT, or I'm sorry, TMAT and the city. Recommend approval for that.
All right. Do we have a motion
Larry?
or discussion?
No discussion. I'll move approval.
Okay. Thank you, Kent. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is that Jeff?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Joe Robson.
Jeff, can I just ask a quick question before you do roll call?
Yes.
Is the intent to have this be contingent upon kind of final,
Yeah, yes, sorry.
negotiations?
Yes, as soon as our attorneys are all satisfied with this sublease, or with this lease, we will get Joe and whoever to sign.
Okay, great. And I might just reaffirm to everyone that there's no major policy changes in this version. The goal really was, as Jeff stated, just to get, it was like 4 separate leases. It was weird the way it had been done. So we've combined everything and really just didn't make any substantial policy changes.
So Kent, is that acceptable to your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Jeff, is that acceptable to your second?
Yes.
Okay, roll call.
All right, Joe Robson,
Yes.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Kyan Kamis,
I believe the mayor is on now, so I will exit as the rep and let him vote.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Jeff Stava,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Motion approved.
All right.
Number 4 is acknowledge and consent to the economic development agreement between the city of Tulsa and American Airlines for the use by American Airlines of an amount not to exceed $12,250,000 of Vision Tulsa proceeds for improvements to the TMAT premises. And the TMAT's not a party to this agreement, but we are required to consent to it. And so it's Vision Tulsa money, and TMAT, we recommend you acknowledge this agreement.
Okay. Have a motion?
Second.
The motion acknowledge and consent to the economic development agreement between the city of Tulsa and American Airlines.
All right.
Jeff Stava seconding.
Yes.
Okay, roll call, Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Acknowledgement is approved.
Okay. Is there any other business to come for TMAT? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. I'll take a second.
Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn, 38.
Okay. So next would be the call to order of the combined meeting of the trustees of the Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust, a meeting of the members of the Tulsa Airport Authority. We need roll call
Yes, sir. Joe Robson,
here.
Kent Harrell,
Present.
Mayor Bynum,
Here.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Here.
Jeff Stava,
Here.
all present. Thank you.
Okay. And then next would be the approval of the amendments of the combined October 8, 2020 meeting of TAIT and TAA. Have a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Roll call?
Who was the second, please?
Kent.
Kent Harrell, thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Okay, financial and operating.
All right, so I will get things kicked off. I think first, with this being the season of gratitude or Thankful Thursday or however you want to look at it, I just want to take a moment to recognize our veterans who have served our country. I was looking yesterday at the numbers. 23 of our employees have served in the armed forces in one way or another. That's about 20% of our employee base. And I just think that there's no greater gift that someone can give than to volunteer their time and talents to serve our nation. And even though I wasn't able to see them all personally yesterday, I just wanted to take a moment today to say thank you. We do have a gratitude tree that we have down in our operations division, where employees are writing things on leaves, what they're thankful for. And it's just been a great way to help us continue to build on that culture of gratitude, the attitude of gratitude. But a few things I wanted to hit on. Of course, we've had a busy few weeks. We had the grand opening on October 29th, the Phoenix flight launch on November 5th. That flight went out nearly full, which was pretty exciting for us. And when I say that, I want to make the caveat that it was nearly full with revenue passengers. So it's a great trip. If you guys have been following along on our social media, we sent a couple of people to Phoenix to be able to blog their experience, to share what we're doing at the airport to keep people safe. And that's really the focus that we continue to share. What are we doing and how can we continue to share that message that the airlines are really spending a lot of time and effort in sharing. We did have our busiest week of passenger activity since pre-COVID, the week of October 11th, which was fall break. Today, we're seeing about 45% of activity compared to the same time last year. And I think what's been really interesting is that Tulsa and this region generally has outperformed the nation by 10 to 12 points every single month. And so that's good for us. That's good for the stories that we're sharing with the airlines about bringing additional capacity back into our market. That being said, that still means we're about 55% down in activity. And so Fabio is going to be going over the budget with you, and it'll provide an overall picture of where we stand as far as revenues. But we just continue to focus on how can we develop revenues, which today really is focused on non-airline revenues and property development. And then how can we control our expenses? And our team has continued to do such a great job. We're working today with 20 fewer employees than we were this same time last year. And yet we're continuing to deliver the same level of service to our customers. And so I'd just like to say, I guess, thank you to our entire team for really being creative and finding solutions to continuing to provide that level of service. We've looked at some new technology that's in place today that we didn't have before. And as Fabio provides the budget update, there's some additional agenda items that are directly related to this subject that I'll be talking about here in a few minutes. But with that, I'll turn it over to Fabio.
Good morning. Today I'll be going over the September 2020 financial and activities compared to September 19, as well as calendar year to date September over 20 over 19. As you can see, our revenues are still a little sluggish. We're about 32% lower than we were last year this time, and about 17% lower calendar year to date, with about $5 million less revenue generated in our calendar year. Expenses, those are the real story here. Like Alexis mentioned, we are doing more with less. Our budget is, I'll go over that shortly, but our expenses compared to last September are 16% lower, almost $300,000 less. And our expenses calendar year to date are about 3.3 million lower than last September calendar year to date this time, 18% down. What that means is we have about 7.5 million in our net operating income before depreciation compared to last year's 1.9. We're still down about 17%, but our expenses continue to subsidize the shortfall in revenues. Our food and beverage is down 66% when compared to last calendar year to date, and retail is down about 48% when compared to last calendar year to date as well. That's collectively about $5-6 million lower than last year. Our parking activity is decreased. While we are seeing incremental increases in activity, we did see a steady increase April through September. and increases, slight dip in September compared to August, but we are seeing incremental increases, but still we have a shortfall of about 59%, $4.7 million of revenue from where we were prior calendar year. Our ground transportation, this is made up of the ride shares, shuttle services, limousine services, taxi services, down about 56% when compared to last fiscal year, calendar year. Transaction days for rental cars are also down about 45%. Operations at RVS down 10% calendar year to date, 15% for the month. And the real interesting thing here is our fuel flows for RVS were up in September by about 14%, while our activity was still down. Looking more deeply into this, all of our fuel providers did show an increase in fuel sales for the month of September. We sold about 7,900 more gallons of avgas in September and about 7,900 gallons of jet fuel A in the month of September. So we are seeing some increases in activity, even though overall we're not seeing those in our comparative yet. Our in-plane passengers are down about 55% for the monthly comparative, 57 for year to date, with about 636,900 less travelers coming through TUL. And our in-plane cargo is down about 14%, 6.5 million pounds less of cargo coming through the airport. James, if you could switch slides. This slide here outlines our in-plane revenues, passengers. The orange bars are 2018, the blue is 19, and the red line is 20. We have seen the worst in April with our decline to about 5,000 passengers in April. But we're seeing a steady increase. Height was July. August, we saw a little dip. And in September, we've kind of seen slight increase. So we're kind of plateauing now. I don't have October's numbers yet. With a holiday, everything's kind of a day behind in reporting, but we'll present those next month in our board meeting. The next slide, James. This is our comparative for our fiscal year to date activity. We're 3 months into our fiscal year 2021. TUL began to feel the effects of the pandemic in mid-March with a full effect in April. So we've kind of have about 6.5, 7 months worth of impact in our financial statements. Looking at our revenues, we're about 6% overall down from what we anticipate to be this time last spring when we did our budget. We were tracking at about $8.1 million in overall revenues. We're actually coming in at about 7.6, which is about $500,000 less collectively over the course of the 3 months. We do have some areas where we are seeing increases. However, some of those areas we were recognizing the airfield parking of the aircraft that has since kind of diminished and is slowly going away. They've moved aircraft and put some in service, so that revenue stream is kind of drying up. Looking down at the bottom of the page, we have our expenses. Again, our budget, $6.1 million. We're actually 4.8. We're $1.3 million lower in our expenses than we anticipated we'd be, 22% down. That really helps soften the blow in our lack of revenues. We're about 42% better for our net and than we anticipated, and that net goes towards debt service and capital purchases. So any additional savings or revenue generated will help ease our days of cash. The next slide, James. This next slide is a forecast of where we anticipate the fiscal year ending. Again, it's only 3 months into the fiscal year, so it's kind of, a lot of estimating, a lot of analysis. But we're forecasting about an 8% down, $2.7 million less in revenue generated across the board there. Our expenses are coming in. If we can maintain the same quality of service at the same expense level, we'll be about 17% lower than budget, a savings of about $4.1 million, providing a net income of about 1.4 greater than we anticipated when we factored our budget last year. Next slide. Next slide, James. Oh, I'm sorry, previous slide. I didn't see the switch. So this is our cash position as of October 31. Today, through October 31, we have about $22.8 million in operating liquidity. This is kind of deceiving. We did receive a fair amount of CARES Act at the end of September. The bulk of our CARES Act draws thus far came in September. We are through August in our draw requests through the FAA. We have about $7.2 million in our CARES Act funding drawn upon thus far, with about $8 million remaining to be drawn, 8.4. All in all, we have about 330 days of cash on hand. Now this is factored against our budgeted expenses, not our actual. Our budgeted expenses for operating and capital purchases of 25.2. So we're estimating a burn rate of cash at about $69,000 a day. Below that is our debt service. We are 4 months into our fiscal year and have allocated $5.3 million of our debt service, which is 16 million, leaving about 10.6 remaining. As of today, I do not see any issues in covering our debt service for fiscal year 2021. Our debt service reserve at the bottom of the page outlines the various accounts that we have dedicated to cover debt service. We currently have approximately 13 months of debt service in reserve. Are there any questions?
Fabio, back to I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a quick question on, and maybe this is just for me to learn better how our revenue works, but how is it that revenue for the year is down 17%, but passengers are down 57%, parking's down 59%, food is down 66%, retail's down 48%? Is that, are we counting federal grant funding as revenue? Is that what's causing that?
No,
It not to be as bad as all the things that I just assume are revenue drivers?
the grant money is not counted as an operating revenue in this model. Our revenue is down slightly when compared to last year, but last year we also did see a reduction in our revenues based on revenue sharing. We did experience some of that, so that decreased our revenues. So it's kind of a breakdown of revenues from last year with a share compared to this year without the share, but the lack of revenue.
And I would just add to that, I mean, parking is our #1 non-airline revenue source. So definitely we get to keep 100% of the net profits from our parking operation. When you look at retail and restaurant sales, we only keep a very small percentage of that revenue. And so even though the sales are down dramatically, if you think if they sell $10, we only keep $1 of that revenue for TAIT. And so the numbers aren't directly correlated to passenger activity for those buckets, but it is for parking.
So just so I understand it, we have a combination of, if I'm remembering correctly, our parking garage, our parking facility was largely, a lot of it was shut down last year while we were doing construction on the garage, which would have impacted revenue. Is that not correct? I just don't understand how we're only down overall 17% year over year, but everything else is down 50 to 70%. All the things that would drive that. Parking down 59% year over year.
Well, so in the revenue bucket, there are things like ground rentals that the airline, that all of our tenants pay. The airline lease space revenues still come in. We have several different things that go into the bucket regardless of the volume of people that are in the building.
Sorry to interrupt you, Alexis. Could we go back to that slide just so,
Sure,
for my reference? Thank you.
Is this the one?
No, it was right at the beginning of Fabio's present.
Okay.
Yeah, that one right there.
This one?
That's what I just don't understand. Our calendar year to date revenue is down 17%, but then when you look at all those things that drive revenue below it, other than,
So
I guess operations isn't as low, but everything else seems to be dramatically higher than that.
So this is activity-based revenue that we're reporting. And so we're not reporting the ground lease or terminal rental revenues. And it's in the big bucket at the top, but the buckets down below, when you look at the total dollar value, they're relatively small except for parking compared to our overall revenue bucket. And Fabio, if there's any clarity you can offer.
Well, I think you hit it there. The employments only affect the revenues that are the terminal specific, where our airport, we operate land leases, which have not been affected. That revenue has not been impacted by the pandemic. Our cargo facility landed weight, those, while it's down, we're still generating significant cargo volume on the airfield. That does not impact the enplaned passenger. So there's a bunch of different buckets that come up into that 17% down that aren't reflected in passenger activities. The land rents are above the budget, and well as our airfield parking, we did make a significant amount of revenue when we had the aircraft parked on our crosswind runway and taxiways. And that revenue, while it helps the bottom line, doesn't really correlate effectively as far as a reduction in employments. That revenue has, they moved those planes, so that revenue is going to kind of level off closer to where we budgeted. But
the other thing I would just add is the passenger facility charge revenue that is not reflected in this number per se, but that's also directly related to activity. So right now we have a $4.50 passenger facility charge. Because our activity numbers are way down, that revenue is not coming in, but we still have debt service obligations that are funded with a PFC. And so what we're having to do with our cash on hand is basically hold that cash so we can make up the difference of any PFC obligations that we have as far as debt service, or CFC, the customer facility charge that rental car customers pay. I mean, on this chart, it shows you that rental car transaction days are down about 43%. So they're not hit the same as airline activity has been hit, but there are debt obligations that we have that are specifically tied to that. And without I think that one's a $3 per day transaction fee that customers pay to help us pay for those garage improvements and things and projects that we've had over the years. So if you go to the next slide, James, I think that provides a little bit additional information in terms of the overall revenue numbers. James, go to the next one. I think it's the budget slide. Keep going. There we go. So this kind of gives you the bigger, broader picture versus the activity report that's the start of Fabio's presentation. So you can see when you look at passenger air carrier revenues, they're down about, or they're actually up. So they were budget 9.6, they're about 10.9. Now you have to remember when we budgeted back in March and April. And so we knew the pandemic had an impact. So we scaled back our forecast for our budget. So we decreased revenues by 22% in March. So this number is not comparing 2000 or fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21. It's comparing our budgeted number to our actual number. But even with a 22% reduction in revenues, we're about even. We're a little better on passenger air carrier revenues. But when you look at the terminal, and the terminal revenues are those that are directly tied to customers. So we're down about $1 million, and that's directly related to food, beverage, and retail. And Fabio, you stop me if I'm wrong here on any of this.
No, that's exactly it there. The terminal revenue, the closest line you're gonna compare to our enplaned passengers.
And then other buildings and ground revenue, that's leases any revenue from any of our tenants on the airfield. Well-
Fuel flow fees, your hotel revenues, non-aeronautical and aeronautical leases, so that those buckets aren't necessarily correlated to the enplaned passengers activity.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Fabio? Okay.
Good job, guys. That's good budgeting and watching the expenses especially. So my hat goes off to you.
Thank you. Our team is doing an amazing job. So the next item is the TUL pilot survey. So just as last month, Austin presented the results from the Riverside pilot survey, Andrew is going to give the summary from the TUL pilot survey in a flash. So Andrew, James, if you want to go ahead and queue up the survey results, that would be great. There we go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So like Alexis said, we recently completed our TUL pilot survey that we do every year. So I'm just going to quickly run through those. So you can see here the breakdown of our 45 responses received. About 50% of our responses were from business traffic. So a big thank you to all of our FBO partners and other partners on the airfield that got this out to the pilots that are flying in and out of Tulsa. If we go to the next slide, James. This was about an extra 20 responses received compared to last year. So it was good to see that we had more participation this year. We did have significantly more business traffic or business pilots responding this year. So that was really good to see as well. Next slide. We asked just to kind of see why the pilots are using TUL. And so over 50% came in as TUL being their home base, or they were an airline or military pilot scheduled through TUL. And then you can kind of see the breakdown of some of the smaller categories in terms of responses there. Next slide. So one of the responses we received last year that we wanted to improve were, how informed people felt about TUL's current and upcoming airfield projects. So you can see in the pink for 2019, we were kind of heavily in that somewhat uninformed category. So we really focused on airfield communication this year. And so we're really excited to see that a lot of this has shifted to the left on this spectrum towards informed or somewhat informed and very informed. And we've seen that somewhat uninformed category come significantly down. So we're going to continue to provide updates to our pilots and tenants of projects on the airfield, but this is encouraging to see that we saw this much improvement in a year. Next slide. This is broken down by rating the following facilities here at TUL. So we saw most of our categories very strong results. Our strongest responses were in key areas such as our navigational aids, signage, lighting, taxiways, runways, obviously very important things. And then our highest negative or poor response that we received was from our ATIS, which is our automated terminal information system. And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit here. But that's a recording that pilots listen to get all the information in terms of weather, airfield conditions, anything they need to know about flying in and out of Tulsa. And we'll kind of break that down here in a couple of slides as to why that came up like that. Next slide. This is looking at of those categories, these are the ones that have the highest decreasing scores year over year. So perimeter road, our FBO services, our ATIS, like we just talked about, those were the three highest negative or biggest declining areas. And then on the next slide.
Hey, Andrew,
yeah.
before we get off of this slide, because these are really what help us prioritize where we want to focus any capital dollars when we have capital dollars to spend. So perimeter road clearly is an area that we need to be working on. And I think in our CIP, you'll see that the ATIS was a big one, and Andrew will probably hit on that in a little bit. But I just wanted to kind of point that out to you. This is why we do these surveys, is to get information to help us prioritize what areas we need to focus on going forward. So sorry to interrupt, Andrew.
No, no worries. And then on the opposite side of things, this is where we saw some significant improvement as well. So access roads to and from TUL saw a 40% increase, and hopefully that's going to increase even more once the Highway 11 project is completed. Our taxiways, general ground maintenance, navigational aids all saw double-digit increases. So that's great to see. Next slide. So this is breaking down.
Hold on one second, Andrew. The slides aren't matching up with you. So there's the increasing scores. The access roads clearly improved. There's been a lot of work done on Mingo Road specifically, but we're right in the middle of construction on Highway 11. But that definitely will show results going forward. James, I think if you go back to the next slide, the one before that. I think we're having some technical difficulties, but
on what I'm showing.
Yeah, we're seeing the good or excellent increasing areas, Alexis.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Well, then my screen isn't showing what you guys are seeing, so.
Move. I'm like, I'm already on that one.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're looking at, just so you know, Alexis, the what one improvement would you suggest for TUL? And so this is where we saw the ATIS information come out again. So we categorize that as ATC. So as I said, the ATIS is a recording that you get all the information you need about the airfield. Most of the complaints were that it was too long, mostly due to the notices to airmen that were included in there. So that's where we give notices to the airmen of any sort of taxiway, runway closures, construction. So obviously with all the American planes that were parked, as well as construction on the airfield within the last year, the ATIS did get pretty lengthy. So fortunately, that's going to be decreasing in length now due to the American planes being moved and most of our airfield maintenance being completed. So that should improve here over the next year. Next slide. So two more slides real quickly. We asked the pilots how their demand has changed due to the COVID environment. We saw about 2/3 of their responses saying that they decreased, but the outlook for the most part seemed optimistic, just kind of waiting for things to come back. But then we also did have, compared to our RVS survey, we also had quite a bit of few companies, specifically the cargo carriers such as FedEx and UPS, that have seen peak volumes here during COVID due to the fact that people are purchasing and shipping things more often now rather than going into the stores and that kind of thing. So the cargo business has at least been flat, if not up, since COVID. So that is, a good outlook on their business. Next slide. And then finally, we just had an open-ended response, and you can kind of see here some of the responses that we got about TUL. So several positive responses saying great airport and people. The ATC got shout outs for being great. Happy with the services here. There were a couple of to-dos on our part in terms of making sure the FOD is cleaned up on taxiways and runways. But for the most part, we had a very positive response from our passengers. But like Alexis said, we'll take this survey and be able to use that as we go forward here in the next year. So any questions on the TUL pilot survey?
Not for me.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Anything else as far as reports? Next on the agenda, number 4, we're going to withdraw. Is that correct?
Yes, I would like to withdraw number 4.
Okay. Number 5, approve TAIT's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy.
So last month I provided a copy of our DEI policy for you all to review. This is a policy that will be added to our HR manual. We do have policies in place today regarding EEO, like equal employment and affirmative action, but this to me was really important for us to add in the environment that we've been in this summer. When talking with our employees, I realized that there was nothing specific in our HR manual that talked about our commitment to diversity and inclusion. And so this just outlines what our commitments are. Our employees helped draft this. Our HR director with our Minority Employee Resource Group drafted the policy, and then we took it to our attorneys to review. And I'm excited to get this officially approved and to be able to share it with our employees.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Have a motion to approve the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy.
Move approval of item 5.
Second.
All in favor, say aye, and we'll have a roll call.
Yes, Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Okay. We've got another policy
Yes.
consideration.
So item number 6 is just for you to receive and review a change to our policy manual. Basically, we are wanting to add, we're exchanging a holiday. So today we have Good Friday as a scheduled holiday for our employees. What we would like to do is make that holiday a floating holiday instead. And this goes back to really trying to provide our employees with more flexibility and control over celebrating holidays that make sense for them. And so giving employees opportunity, if they want to take Good Friday off, they still can use this as a floating holiday for that day. If they want to take the Monday after Easter off, they can do that. But this essentially leaves the number of holidays the same. It just provides employees more control over when they choose to celebrate those holidays.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Have, this is just to consider,
This is just to receive, yes.
and we don't need anything, or do we want a motion to receive it?
No, we don't need a motion. You can just. receive.
Okay.
Yep.
Item 7 and 8.
Yes, I'd like to take 7 and 8 together. Item number 7, approve amendment to the TAIT schedule of rates, fees, and charges effective January 1, 2021 for the following charges: CITA and sterile area badges, new and renewal, change from $51 to $60. Airfield operation area badges, new and renewals, change from $21 to $31. Item
$31 or $30?
I'm sorry, $30, $21 to $30.
Okay.
Item number 8, approve amendment to TAIT's schedule of rates, fees, and charges effective July 1, 2020 of the following charges: reserved covered parking, non-specific space, $250 per month per space. This charge has been in effect for a number of fiscal years. However, it was inadvertently omitted in the rates, fees, and charges schedule that was presented to the board with the June 2020 approval of the fiscal year budget.
Okay. Have a motion for 7 and 8.
Move approval for items 7 and 8, please.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
7 and 8 are approved.
Item 9.
9 is approved Department of Homeland Security Law Enforcement Officer Reimbursement Program Agreement. This agreement provides partial reimbursement to the airport to provide law enforcement support to TSA screening operations and a presence at the TSA checkpoint. And we recommend approval for that.
Okay. Have a motion?
Move approval of item 9.
Second, Mary Smith Crofts.
Okay. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Number 9 is approved. Number 10 is approved renewal of agreement with Chubb Limited Insurance Company through Insurica for airport general liability insurance coverage at an annual premium of $72,500. That's the same rate it's been for 3 years now. The limits are $1 million for each accident and the aggregate of $25 million. And we have 0 claims, and I recommend approval.
Have a motion?
Move approval item 10.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Number 10 is approved.
Okay.
11.
I will take item 11, which is to award bid for aircraft rescue and firefighting services to ProTech in the amount of $875,000. So back in March, when we started looking at our budget and realizing that we were going to have a significant hit to revenue, we started looking at every line item in our budget and trying to identify how we would be able to control expenses in order to have enough coverage so that we can pay our debt service obligations. Back towards the end of March, when we had the first draft budget, I initially started talking with our director of operations, with our COO, and started exploring looking at the ARF costs. And the reason was ARF costs, aircraft rescue and firefighting costs, are the largest single line item in our operating expense budget other than the cost of our own employees. For fiscal year 21, those costs are about $1.9 million, which is pretty significant. Now, there's no doubt that the services that firefighters provide are invaluable. When you need them, you absolutely want to have them there at your airport and provide the best response. And we have been so fortunate to have the services of the Tulsa Fire Department at our airport for many years, many decades, in fact. With that being said, the intent behind us going out to bid had nothing to do with the level of service or the people that are in the firehouse today on airport property. It had everything to do with our need to really address a budget concern that back in March, we really didn't know the impact of. And here we are today, 7 months later, and we still see the impact in reduced revenues. And I still don't think we know how long that is going to be the case. And so when we started looking at ARF services, firefighting services at an airport are different than firefighting services in a regular structured unit that might be in your neighborhood. Firefighters at the airport are specially trained in how to respond to aircraft fires in particular. And that's because traditionally there's a lot of fuel involved when an aircraft has an incident that's flammable. And so the primary objective, and this is all regulated by the FAA and is part of our annual airport certification by the FAA, but our fire department is required to respond to an aircraft incident and spray foam in 3 minutes. And so They need to get foam on the flyer so that people, if they're on the plane, can exit the plane as quickly as possible. And so I would say that number one, by us looking at getting a private operator and bringing in the services, this in no way affects the level of safety to our customers, to airport customers, because they are going to have to meet the same standard that is met today. And that's something that we're evaluated on by the FAA on an annual basis. So that was my first question when we were looking at this and considering whether or not to go out to bid. What are the requirements by the FAA and how would we continue to meet those and potentially get a lower cost? And so we started exploring, just asking around in the industry to other airports to determine who has looked at private providers of fire services in the industry, and found out surprisingly that there were many airports out there that have already made this move. And once we got more familiar with those programs and saw that they were successful, I think that really gave us the confidence to say, okay, let's look at this for Tulsa and determine if this is a right fit for Tulsa. At the same time, we started writing the RFP process. So, this was probably midsummer of this year, May, June. We wanted to write an RFP that would provide the opportunity for any provider to quote, including Tulsa Fire Department. We would welcome the opportunity for them to bid on the project and win it, but we wanted to make sure that, number one, the minimum staffing levels that would be required to operate our equipment was met. And then number two, that we selected a firm that had the qualifications and experience in order to provide the level of service that our customers are accustomed to. Because let's face it, when you have the best when you have such a high level customer service that TFB has provided, that's what our tenants and our customers are accustomed to. And we wanted to make sure we could still meet that same level of standard with any private operator. So in July, we officially issued our first RFP. So fully expecting, again, we would have a slew of providers provide a quote, including Tulsa Fire Department. The RFP went out on July 6th, I believe. And unfortunately, we were notified at that point that Tulsa Fire Department would not be able to bid. But we continued on with the process with the other bidders, and we received 4 proposals in that first round of the RFP process. The challenge at that point, and if you recall, this board was asked to reject those responses at the time because the challenge was there were stipulations in some of the proposals, and really every proposal had some kind of language modification or change to insurance requirements or change to staffing levels. And it was hard for us to really do an apples to apples comparison of all of the different responses. And so we did reject the proposals. We took that time then, that interim, it was about a 30-day window or so to look at the RFP, rewrite it to make it more clear, but then also to have discussions again with Tulsa Fire Department to see if there would be a way that we could find a solution that would allow the firefighters that are out there today to stay in place. I mean, I just want to give Chief Baker a lot of credit because they got extremely creative in finding ways to fund some of the positions at the fire station. But at the end of the day, the dollar amount that they came back with just wasn't a competitive dollar amount compared to what we had seen from the marketplace. And so we elected to go ahead then and I think it was in October to reissue the RFP. And so with that being said, we did receive 4 bids the second go around. 4 companies participated in the RFP process. They were all evaluated based on the quality of their bid, based on the cost of their proposed budget, and based on their level of experience and expertise in the field. And I would say that there were I think after the review process, we could see that there was a clear leader amongst that group. Today, we're recommending that you award the contract to ProTech. And the reason why ProTech rose to the top is, number one, ProTech has 22 airports in the United States that they serve today with fire services. 5 of those are index C airports, meaning they're airports the same size of Tulsa. They have the same, equipment requirements as Tulsa does. ProTech also has experience in Oklahoma City. They provide fire services for the airport in Oklahoma City and have done so for many years. And I think overall, the selection committee felt that their combination of experience and their proposed price was the best fit for our needs today. The proposed price of $875,000 is a 54% reduction compared to our line item budget for fiscal year 21. It's a significant savings to TAIT, and ultimately a savings that we will be able to use in the years ahead, potentially, as we work to come out of the pandemic. With that, I really want to turn it over to you all to see what questions you have, and would be happy to answer your questions.
Alexis, yes, Alexis, this is Kent. Refresh my memory. As I recall, this covers the firefighting and rescue processes at TIA, and
Correct.
that Riverside is provided by the Jenks Fire Department. Is that correct? Or
So
it's provided separately, I guess.
So yeah, Riverside is a separate operation, but actually Tulsa Fire Department responds to incidents at Riverside, as does Jenks Fire Department.
Okay.
So Austin works with both of those units to, in terms of just an annual communication. I know one of the things recently that he did was he's working on getting the Jenks Fire Department a air traffic control tower radio, so that they can communicate directly, but it's a separate thing from TUL.
Okay. And we're leaving it the same, is that right?
Yes, that'll,
Okay.
yeah.
Mayor Bynum?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I've been discussing this with Chief Baker and Alexis throughout the process, and appreciate the thorough way Alexis and her team have gone about this. We had our firefighters union elected new leadership late last week, and I received a call yesterday from the new president, who asked me to relay to this board a request to delay this just to our next meeting, so that the new leadership of the union could have an opportunity to visit with Alexis and Chief Baker. I don't know what that does to your overall process. I would generally, from my standpoint, think that delaying a month to allow that conversation wouldn't be terribly problematic, but I wanted to pass that along.
Alexis, do we have a time limit for acceptance of this bid?
I would defer that to Jeff, as far as,
There's no time limit. The plan was to start implementation and then go 100% by February 1st, or March 1st.
it's March 1st. And so
There's
as
no
you,
ramp-up time.
yeah, as you can imagine, for a transition of this nature, it requires quite a bit of coordination with the incoming firm, and then of course working with our existing team, and making sure our systems and everything are ready, and just the general hiring of personnel is quite the undertaking. I would say my only thought about delaying it is we have given the Tulsa Fire Department every opportunity to provide us their best cost. And I believe Chief Baker did everything he could do to get us the lowest possible cost that is structured around their policies in place today. And so I would be very cautious about delaying it another month when we have been working, you know, for quite some time to try to get us to this point. And I think, I mean, my preference would be that we move ahead.
I think the point that was made to me was that Chief Baker made his best offer with the agreements in place with the union, and that there might be a willingness of the union to change those agreements, which would then change Chief Baker's ability to offer a better, make a better offer.
Okay, so Jeff Shaw, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If we delay this and the fire department comes in with a better offer, are there legal ramifications to that? I mean, it's not something we would have to go through the RFP process again, or?
Yeah, well, okay, so we just a reading, a plain reading of the RFP we would have to reject the bids and start again.
So it's not a month's delay. It could be several month delay.
Well, yes, technically, I guess it could. You wouldn't want to keep that going. The bidders may want to step out at that point.
There's an awful lot of difference here. I'm sympathetic to the Tulsa Fire Department for sure, but I mean, that's an awful lot of room to make up a 1.3 million to 800 and some odd thousand, 875. You're looking at all $425,000 difference in the bid. Just changing policies with the union, I'm skeptical that they would be able to make up that much difference or even come close.
And again, they've just asked for the opportunity to have that conversation, given that they have new leadership that wasn't in place when the fire department's proposal was developed.
And we really risk, you know, I was on the committee for review, and by withdrawing the RFP last time and rejecting all the bidders, you know, I'm surprised we got them all to come back and we didn't have any major movement. I'm just afraid if we do a delay, I mean, one of the considerations is, will these people withdraw their submission, or would they want to do business with us? Because we've jerked them around since August. And to Alexis's point, we've been talking to the fire department 2 or 3 times, you know, with serious discussions, and they knew the landscape because the bids had come in. I'm just kind of scratching my head to understand how they would be able to make that up. I mean, I just don't know how. I'm kind of with Ken. I don't understand how they could do that. But I don't understand the intricacies of how all that works. I would think Chief Baker could have made that happen. I'm not sure I understand.
What would the board like to do? We have a motion?
Joe, this is Mary.
Yes.
I just have a couple questions just to clarify. How long, and Jeff Shaw, you probably know this, how long will the ProTech company guarantee the price that they currently have included in their bid?
I don't have the answer to that right off the bat. I would have to go look at the RFP
Okay.
Generally in construction contracts and things that we're normally doing, it's 60 days.
I have an idea. Why don't we just give them a week and have another meeting in a week? Have a special meeting for just this topic and give the union a week to go back and look and see what they can do, and have Chief Baker and the union work with Alexis, and we don't wait a whole month and then we just have a special meeting. We were thinking about having a special meeting for American anyway, so just tack it onto that agenda next week.
So I would say this to that. If we enter into negotiations with Tulsa Fire Department, then we have to reject the bids, because it's not fair to the companies who have bid, who have gone through the process for multiple times, for us to enter into negotiations with Tulsa Fire Department. So I think the decision today has to be that we award the contract or that we don't. And if we don't, then we have to start the process over again. I mean, I think, the first go around, the first time that we went out to bid, there was some discussion about whether we could have negotiations with TFD. And at that point, we were told no. Our attorneys told us we could not negotiate in the middle of an RFP process. And I believe the city attorneys shared that with Tulsa Fire Department as well. So I would just caution us going forward. I think we either have to award it, we can delay it, but delaying it's not going to enable us to enter into negotiations with Tulsa Fire Department.
Yeah, well then the decision's kind of made then.
I'm not a lawyer, but that, having done a lot of these kind of contracts, et cetera, I think Alexis is exactly correct. Our only alternatives are either accept this bid or reject all of them and open a new RFP. And I agree with her that I see a lot of risk to doing that, notwithstanding the fact that I'm a huge fan of the Tulsa Fire Department and Chief Baker, and I would like to accommodate them. But I'm sorry, I think we've accommodated them all we can. And at some point, this will come up again. And at that point, we'll certainly include them in any RFP in the future.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mary, how long is this contract? What's the length of this contract, Jeff?
Well,
It's five.
go ahead.
It's
Go ahead.
5 years.
Okay.
And then there's a mutual option for renewal, if I'm correct.
Okay.
But it allows us to have, it's 5 years with three options, 3 5-year options that are mutual options. So we'd come back to the board in 5 years to exercise that option.
Any other questions? Anybody have a motion one way or the other?
I'll move that we accept the bid under item 11. I'm sorry that we can't do something to help the Tulsa Fire Department, but I think the risk to us and to the airport and to our credibility is simply too great. So I move approval of item 11.
Okay.
This is Mary. I will second that.
Okay. Motion is seconded. Jeff, you want to do a roll call?
Thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum,
No.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion is approved for item number 11.
Number 12, draft Tulsa International 5-year capital improvement plan.
Good morning. I'd like to take 12 and 13 together. This is just to receive these plans. There's no decision you all have to make now, so you can relax over these two. I will be coming, or the airport will be coming to you next month for approval of both of these plans. So for now, item 12 is to receive for initial consideration the draft Tulsa International Airport 5-year airport capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. The initial draft contains 24 projects totaling $48,240,000. If you don't mind, I like to go through the plan, but only the first year projects. I don't want to bore you through 5 years of this. And again, at any time, if you have any questions, please stop me. The first project for year 2022 is to replace snow removal equipment. Right now, our snow removal equipment ranges in year from 1992 to 2005. Right now, we're clearing the runway with dump trucks with plows mounted to the front and pulling a broom behind. It's not very efficient. It worked for a long time, but companies have come out with a more efficient, faster piece of equipment that does the same thing, but it's like I said, much more efficient. This project will purchase one combination equipment. This is 90% federally funded. We're anticipating about $1.1 million for this piece of equipment. Project 2 for 2022 is terminal escalator replacement. Over the years, we've been trying to replace the older escalators. We're down to 4 escalators that are the oldest in the terminal building. We have an up and a down escalator, A-side ticketing. We have 1 up escalator on concourse A, and we have 1 up escalator on concourse B. We're anticipating about an $800,000 cost to replace these, and this will be a PFC funded project. Project 3 for 2022 is to repair terminal access roads. Over the years, we have maintained the roadway with staff. And we're talking the entrance road, the exit road, and also the road in front of the terminal building. It has come to a point where our staff can't maintain this anymore. We're anticipating about a $2.4 million project to rehabilitate these roadways. And we're looking at this being a TAIT funded project. Item 4, or project 4, is remodel restrooms. There's been a lot of service relief animals in the terminal building, and we have no way to provide a relief area for those animals on the on the secured side. We do have 2 restrooms, a men's and a women's restroom at the lower level, A terminal and B terminal. We'd like to take one of those restrooms on either side and turn it into a service animal relief area. And the other restroom, we'd like to turn into an expanded family restroom. We will be doing this modifications in-house. We're anticipating about $200,000 for that project, and that would be TAIT funded. Project 5 is air traffic control tower stair rehabilitation project. We've been tossing this over several years now. It's finally come to a point where the likelihood of a new tower is down the road a ways. We need to bring the stairs up to ADA compliance and also building code. Excuse me. We're anticipating about $1.5 million for this project, and that would be a TAIT project, TAIT funded project. The final project for 2026 here at TUL is the air traffic control tower elevator upgrade. Again, been mulling this over for a while. It does not comply with ADA regulations or building code. We're anticipating about $350,000 to upgrade this elevator. And this will be a TAIT project. There's no questions regarding item 12, which is the TUL CIP. I will roll into project 13. Excellent. Project 13, excuse me, item 13 is received for initial consideration the draft Tulsa Riverside Airport 5-year capital improvement plan for the same years, fiscal year 2022 through 2026. The initial draft of the RVS CIP has 4 projects totaling $4,295,000. We're only looking at 4 projects, so if you don't mind, I will go ahead and go through all 4 projects, starting with the first one being the construction for the connector taxiway rehabilitation, runway 1 left, 19 right to taxiway Alpha. Several years ago, we rehabilitated taxiway Alpha. Not long ago, we rehabilitated 19 right. We're needing to rehabilitate the connector taxiways. Currently, this project is under design. We're anticipating construction to start in 2022. This is a federally funded project, and we're looking at $2,400,000 roughly for construction. Project 2 down at Riverside is rehabilitate and widen runway 1331. As I previously mentioned, taxiway Alpha was rehabilitated, 19 right, 19 left. At the same time that we rehabilitated those pavements, we widened runway 1331 from 50 feet to 60 feet to meet standard, new standards, FAA standards. We have a small portion on the east side that still needs to be widened. And once that is complete, we will overlay the entire length and width of the runway. We're anticipating design to start in 2023 and construction to start in 2024. Total project amount roughly 1.5 million. And this is also a federally funded project. Project 3 is update master plan for Riverside Airport. The current master plan was created in 2006. There's been a lot of changes down there. We need to update the master plan. We anticipate about a $200,000 cost for this, federally funded, and that will take place in 2024. Last project down at Riverside for the years 2022 to 2026 will be pavement rehabilitation, taxiway Alpha, Juliet, Zulu, Northeast Hangar area, Perimeter Road, and West Side roadways. That's a lot of work. These pavements are in pretty decent shape, and we want to maintain that as long as we can. They are cracked. We need to go in there and do some crack sealing, and we'd also like to apply a slurry seal to the surfaces of these pavements. That will help extend the life of that pavement. We're looking at approximately $230,000 to do that work. With that, if there are no other questions, we can move on from items 12 and 13. Again, I will bring this to your board meeting in December for final approval.
You're on mute.
Joe, you're on mute.
We don't need a motion.
Sorry, I'm talking away. Frank, the only thing I saw on that on the connectors at Riverside,
Yes,
I know we got FAA changed their diagonal connections to the taxiways, and we're on those. Is that going to be a requirement FAA at civil airports that those are perpendicular to the taxiways?
Yes, sir. Currently we are in preliminary engineering design on that, working with the OAC, Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. They know the importance of traffic down at Riverside and getting that aircraft off of the runway just as quick as we can because of all of the traffic we do have. They're working with that. We don't think we're going to have to go with previous. There you go. We don't think we're going to have to go with the 90-degree exits off the main runway. That's what we were looking for, and we have the OAC on our side on that one.
Okay, good. Very good. All right, those are received, and so I guess would be item, well, contracts. We have a few.
Item 14.
Item 14. Change order.
I'm sorry, sir. Yes, item 14 is approved change order number 1, ticket counters, terminal building projects phase 4 with Myers Cherry Construction LLC in the amount of $5,961.60. This change is a result of dimensional error in the drawings, and it is approximately 0.1% of increase on the project. Management would recommend approval of item 14.
Okay. Have a motion?
Move approval, item 14.
Second. Hello?
Second it.
Thank you. Oh,
Okay, I have a motion from Mary Smith Croft and a second from Jeff Stava. And I'll call the roll. Joe Robson,
aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum. I believe Mayor Bynum has left the meeting. Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion 14 is approved.
All right. Item 15.
Item 15 is to approve the sublease agreement with Morgan Services Company LLC. It's for 1.83 acres north and east of North Sheridan Road and Virgin Street for 10 years with 3 10-year options to extend the term effective December 1st, 2020. I'm actually pretty excited about this because this is land. You go ahead and click the picture there, James. This is land that I really never thought we'd be able to do much with. It's just west of our RPZ. It's a very skinny strip. Come to find out, one of the buildings on Sheridan sold, and the new owner was requiring additional parking space. So we took it to the FAA, and they said we could sublease it out. So again, I'll take it, and we'll go from there. And we recommend approval.
Okay, good job. Have a motion?
So moved.
Who was that? Kent?
Stava.
Nope. Jeff.
Jeff?
Kent will
Okay.
second. Kent will
Okay.
second.
All right. Jeff? Sean?
Yes, thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion for number 15 is approved.
Okay. Number 16.
Number 16, just kind of a couple of things to go with it. Approve amendment number 1 to sublease agreement with Navistar Inc., which is the North Bus Plant parking lease, to first, A, adjust the extension option period from 5 years to 4 years, 6 months to expire June 30th, 2025. B, to consent to the exercise of the option. And C, adjust the rentals from 22 to 24 cents for the IPDI. James, if you want to click on the next slide. This is to basically consolidate their leases, so they all will, the terms and rates will all be the same, and that'll be effective January 1st. Next slide, James. Keep going, keep going. There you go. It's just that skinny little strip there on the north side of the bus plant. And again, this is just to consolidate all of their terms at the same time, so they can then option them all together and not have staggering agreements. We recommend approval.
Okay. Have a motion?
Move approval, item 16.
Second?
Second by Kent Harrell.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Number 16 is approved.
Number 17.
Number 17 is to approve acknowledgement and consent to subtenant Fuel Farm and Dispensing Facility of Tulsa Fuel Facilities, effective upon approval with Sparrowhawk Inc., subtenant of Tulsa Fuel Facilities LLC for excess fuel storage. If you remember, we had, I think last month, approved all the subtenancies for the fuel farm. We had removed Sparrowhawk due to the lack of a tank, and that tank is now should be in progress as far as being installed. So they are moving to be good with us as far as their minimum standards. So we are allowing them to store the excess fuel storage with the fuel facility.
Okay. Have a motion for 17.
Move approval, item 17.
Second.
Oh, a second.
There you go. Go, Jeff.
Jeff Shaw.
Yes, I have a motion from Mary and a second from Jeff Stava. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava. Number
Aye.
7. Oh, sorry. Number 17 is approved.
Number 18.
Number 18 is approve amendment number 4 to sublease agreement with Mercury Air Center, Tulsa LLC, doing business as Atlantic Aviation, to clarify the language set forth in amendment number 3, effective May 1st, 2007, specifically with regard to future rental adjustments by CPI rather than appraisal, effective upon approval by TUL. And again, this is just an amendment that stated it would move forward with our current standards as far as options and everything else, which our current standards now are CPIs, not appraisal. So that's what we're moving them to.
Okay. Have a motion to approve item number 18.
Move approval to item 18.
Stava, second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Motion number 18 is approved.
Number 19.
Number 19 is approve assignment of sublease and acknowledgement and consent to assignment, Block 12, Block 7A, Northeast Hangar B24 from TR Robinson to B24 TRVS LLC, effective upon approval.
Okay. Have a motion.
Move approval, item 19.
Second.
Stava, second.
Yes, I was good.
Roll call, please.
I have a motion from Mary Smith Crofts and a second from Kent Harrell.
Oops. I think the second was from Jeff.
Okay, thank you very much. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
19 is approved.
Okay. So the next item will take 20, 21, 22, and 23 together.
Correct. And go ahead and click on that slide there, James. So a little background, this kind of came from our audit of all the lease files, and we call these condo style hangars, where there are multiple tenants within our subtenant, and we have to approve. And so we just want to make sure we have all the correct people. And so that is what we're doing right now is approving all the subtenancies for these condo style hangar tenants. So number 20 is approve acknowledgement and consent to subtenants of Meridian Resources LLC for Robert Conklin, Terraplane LLC, Pat Bean, Keiko LLC, Daniel Bray, Buyers Company, Furman Investments LLC, Don and Aaron Chappell, and 23456 Family Trust, which is David Pentecost. 21 is approve acknowledgement and consent to subtenants of Lucas Controls Company, DBA 4J Aviation, to Al Dvorak, Dan Askew, Brian Van Dyke, Renaud Fowl, Keith Thomas, Grant Cassidy, Jerry Urban, Alan Anderson, Gary Sherrill, Jerry Edwards, Rick Cohen, John Barron, Keith Trost, John Carmichael, Daniel Barbie, Marge Tighe, Peter Sandstead, and Greg Magnuson. Number 22 is approve acknowledgement and consent of sometimes of Lucas Controls 4J Aviation. The second one, Richard Davis, Gary Sipes, Nate Smetansky, Norman Asbornson, Austin Walden, Leslie Lucas, Paul Hinkle, Jim Hammock. And 23, approve acknowledgement and consent to subtenants of South Tulsa Hangars LLC, to Justin Frunk, David Williams, Jim Kuykendall, Chris Maston, Oral Surgery, CMOS, Shelton Helicopter Services, Dr. John J. Aldridge, Perry Hood Properties, Buckeye Fluids LLC, and Crumpton Aviation LLC. If there are no questions, we recommend approval.
Have a motion for 20, 21, 22, 23.
Move approval 20, 21, 22, and 23.
Second, Mary.
Okay, roll call.
Thank you. Jill Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
Those items are approved.
Okay. Is there any other TAIT business or any other TAA business? Thank you all for your patience. This has been a full agenda today, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All of us.
Roll
All of
call.
All right, Joe Robson,
Aye.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Jeff Stava.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 10:01.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, folks.